Alright, boys and girls, today's lesson is lesson 7-7. We're going to be working with fractions and line plots. So to get the lesson started, I'm going to kind of go over what a line plot is. I'm going to kind of freshen up your memory of line plots. Line plots are just ways to graph things in a vertical manner, to where if you saw, if I asked all the kids in the class, how many brothers and sisters do they have? You would get anywhere between 0 and, I don't know, maybe 5. Okay. So in between, you would have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I asked everybody. And at the end of it, I got the data of 3 kids had 0 brothers and sisters. 2 kids, 2 students had 2. I'm sorry, 1. 1 student had 1. 4 students had 3 brothers and sisters. No students had 4. And 1 student had 5 brothers and sisters. Sure, this is just 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 11 kids question, which is fine. I'm just making an example. Okay, so after gathering the data, which I did, and I just put it on my line plot. By looking at this line plot, I could tell you which one was the most frequent, meaning which happened the most, which of the numbers 0 through 5 happened the most. So I can tell just by looking at a line plot, because a line plot goes up vertically, means it goes up and down. So because it goes up and down, you can just look and see which one goes the highest. Well, 3 students, I'm sorry, not 3 students, 3 brothers and sisters was the most frequent. Okay, and how many students had 3 brothers and sisters? 4, because there are 4 data points. Okay, if I said which one, or what is the difference between the most amount, the highest amount, and the smallest amount of kids, it would be 5, because the highest data point is 5, minus 0, because there were 3 students that had 0, so the difference is 5. Okay, if I said which total amount of brothers and sisters did 0 kids have, you would say 4, because no students had 4. So if we were to work in fractions, which I'm going to go over some in fractions today, it would be just the same, because sometimes you might be working in halves or quarters or eighths, and then you would just put your data point on the top of it. And obviously I want to kind of keep things level, because if you get them to where they're not level, then you're not going to be able to really tell who had the most frequent number, because you'd have to count them. If you don't want to have to count them, and you just stack them up neatly on top of each other in even rows, then you'll be able to tell just by looking at it, okay, 3 brothers and sisters is the most common in our classroom. So I'm going to give you another couple examples here. This would be an example of data taken that talks about how many students are in each class. Okay, so if I asked you which class had the least amount of students, you would say 26. Okay, one class had the least amount of students. 26 is the least amount of students. If I told you what was the most amount of students, do not look at 29, because the most amount of students is 33, because there is a data point there. If there was no data point there, like in 32 there's no data point, it would just be 31. Okay, so if there are no data points in 32 and 33, 31 would be the highest. But 33 has 1 data point. So that data point tells you that the most amount of kids in any class is 33. It's just one class, but it is 33 in that one class. Alright, so what was the most frequent number of kids in a classroom? Well, this is where you look at how high it goes. Okay, so you would look at 29, because 4 classes had 29 kids. So that class was the most frequently used. Okay, if I said what's the difference between the highest number and the smallest number of students, you would take 33 and you would minus 26 to get 7. That's the difference between the highest and the lowest. Don't take 4 minus 1 because that is not what we're asking. We want to know the difference between the highest number and the lowest number of students. Okay? So that's why it's helpful for a line plot. I also have a sheet here, and this is asking all the students number of books they've read. Okay? So I'm going to start a line plot. First I'm going to look and see what was the most amount of books any kid read, and it's 8. So I'm going to start a line plot from 0. I'm going to go to 10. I know no kids read 10, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Not the greatest, not the most accurate, but this is the way we can take our data. I'm going to extend that out a little bit. Why not? We can take our data. Let's see if I can move this down a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to look at the data collected here. It says student number 1 read 5 books. So I'm just going to put a dot above 5. Okay. Okay, student number 2 read 1 book. Put a dot above 1. Student number 3 read 2 books. Put a dot above 2. Student number 4 read 5 books. So put another dot above 5. Student number 5 read 8 books. Student number 6 read 0 books. That's not good. Student number 7 read 3 books. Student number 8 read 2 books. Student number 9 read 2 books. And student number 10 only read 1 book. Okay, so looking at this data that you collected on your line plot, what was the highest number of books that were read by any student? Okay, hopefully you didn't look at that and you said, oh wait, highest number would be 8. One student read 8 books. That's the highest amount of books any kid read. What was the lowest number of books any kids read? It would be 0 books. This kid read 0 books, so he's in trouble. But he read 0 books, so that's why there's a data point above 0. Okay, to find the difference between the highest and lowest, you would take your 8 minus 0, which would equal 8. Which was the most frequent number of books that a kid read? It was 2, because 3 kids read 2 books. Okay? So hopefully you understand with line plots that you're plotting up higher or lower. Yes, 9 and 10 are on my plot, 6 and 7 are on it, 4 is on it, but nobody read those. It doesn't have to have a data point next to it. Okay? So I'm going to push this stuff out of the way. I want you to turn to your next page in your 249 in the activity book. It says use a line plot as a line plot is a line plot is a graph that shows data using a number line. Mateo wants to bake raisin bread. He has several recipes that make 1 loaf of bread. The line plot shows the number of cups of sugar in the recipes. Okay, the first question says, how many recipes for raisin bread does Mateo have? So basically, how many does he have in all? Well, if you look at all his line plots, all of his data points, you would just add them together. You have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. You have 12 recipes. How many of the recipes have more than a half cup of sugar? Okay, it wants more than a half cup, not a half cup. It wants more than a half cup. So anything over on this side of a half is what you would look at. And there are 3 and 7. So there are 7 recipes. What is the least amount of sugar in any recipe? Do not put 0, because there wasn't a data point above 0. There was one recipe that required 1/4 cup. So that was the least amount of sugar that any of the recipe needed. How much less sugar is in a recipe with the least sugar than the recipe with the most sugar? Well, the most sugar is 3/4. most sugar is 3/4, and then you would minus the recipe with the least sugar, and that is 1/4. So you would get 2/4. So it would be 2/4 of a cup. That is the difference between the highest and the lowest. Don't do 1 as the highest, and don't do 0 as the lowest, because there's no data points on them. Next one. It says Mateo wants to try all the recipes with exactly 5/8 of a cup of sugar. How much sugar does he need? Okay, there are 3 recipes with 5/8 of a cup. So 5/8 of a cup times 3. So hopefully you would know from our earlier learning of multiplication, you would take 3 times 5/8 to give yourself 15/8. So you could say 15/8 cups, or you could work that into a mixed number of 1 7/8. 1 7/8 cups. Okay? And it says, how much sugar would you expect any recipe for raisin bread to need? Explain your thinking. Okay, so what would you think that you would need? What would you expect any of them would need? Okay, and hopefully you all thought of something along the lines of between 1/2 a cup to 3/4 of a cup, because that's basically where all the data points fall. Sure, there's one oddball over there, but most of them fall in here. So you need 1/2 a cup, between 1/2 a cup and 3/4 of a cup of sugar. Okay, and I'll let you write all that in yourself. So if you have time now, I want you to work on the next page. Okay, you're going to be plotting them yourself, which is kind of cool. It's kind of easy. So basically what you're doing on the next page is you are going to look at the paper lengths, and it gives you all the data here. So there were 4. So I'll tell you the first one. 1/2 inch, you're going to find a 1/2 inch right here, and you're going to put, it tells you 4 dots above it, 4 data points, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then you're going to find 5/8, line plot, or put how many are on there, and then same goes to the next line, and then it can ask you a couple questions. So if you're able to do that, great. If not, we'll finish that at an independent station later in the unit.